I arrived at my parents' 30th anniversary feeling a little nervous, hoping maybe this time things would feel different. Everyone had already eaten, the tables were messy with empty plates, and I could tell no one had been expecting me. As I stood there awkwardly, my mom walked over, her smile small and tight. Without saying much, she slipped a folded $1,000 bill into my hand and whispered, "Just don't make a scene today." In that moment, the whole evening made sense. It wasn't kindness. It wasn't love. It was just another way to keep me quiet, to remind me of my place, to make sure their perfect celebration stayed perfect. I felt that familiar sting in my chest, the same feeling I'd carried since I was a kid, always the one standing on the outside looking in. I found a small empty chair in the corner and sat silently, trying not to draw attention. No one looked my way, no one asked if I'd eaten, and no one seemed bothered that I had arrived to nothing but crumbs. The $1,000 in my hand felt heavy, like it carried every moment of being overlooked throughout my life. As I sat there, something inside me shifted. Instead of feeling small or hurt, I felt strangely calm. That quiet moment showed me the truth more clearly than any argument ever could. I didn't belong there, not because I wasn't enough, but because they never tried to make space for me. I stayed only as long as I needed to be polite, then walked out without saying anything. And for the first time, I didn't feel guilty for choosing myself. Growing up in Ohio, I learned very early where I stood in my own family. My older brother, Travis, was the one everyone praised. If he brought home a B, my dad acted like he'd won a trophy. If he messed up, it was brushed off as boys will be boys. There was always money for his sports, his trips, and whatever new thing he decided he needed. For me, things were different. I worked 2 jobs just to pay for school supplies and save for college. When I asked for help, my dad, Mark, would sigh and say I needed to toughen up. He always told me I was too sensitive, as if wanting support from my own family was some kind of weakness. My mom, Linda, rarely disagreed with him. She would nod along, trying to keep the peace, even if it meant leaving me to figure everything out alone. The difference between how they treated us was impossible to ignore. If Travis wanted something, they made it happen. If I wanted something, I had to figure out how to afford it or simply go without. I remember sitting at the kitchen table doing homework after a long shift, exhausted, while Travis relaxed on the couch and bragged about what our parents bought him next. No one ever asked how I was holding up. No one noticed when I was drowning. It wasn't jealousy. It was the realization that no matter how hard I tried, I would never be seen the way he was. That imbalance shaped almost every choice I made growing up, and deep down, it taught me not to expect anything from them, even when I needed them the most. At every birthday, holiday, or family gathering, the same pattern repeated itself so many times that it stopped surprising me. Travis always got the first plate, the biggest portion, the best seat, and everyone's attention. My parents acted like it was natural, like he somehow deserved more without ever having to do anything. I learned to wait, to take whatever was left, to smile even when it hurt. It wasn't just about food or seats. It was about how I was treated in general. If I spoke, people talked over me. If I shared something I was proud of, it was brushed aside within seconds. I felt like furniture, present, but invisible. I tried harder for years, thinking maybe if I did more, they would finally see me. But nothing changed. Their warmth, their excitement, their energy, all of it belonged to Travis. Eventually, I stopped expecting anything. I kept my head down, saved every extra dollar I earned, and learned how to take care of myself emotionally because no one else ever checked in. Every time I packed my lunch for school or walked home alone in the cold while Travis got rides and spending money, the message was clear: I was an afterthought in a house that should have been my home. By the time I turned 19, I was tired of pretending it didn't hurt, tired of fighting for a place that was never really mine. So I moved out. I found a small room to rent, worked even more hours, and started building a life that didn't require my parents' approval. Leaving wasn't easy, but staying would have meant continuing to shrink myself just to fit into the tiny space they allowed me. And I knew I deserved more than that. Months went by without a single word from my parents. No calls, no messages, nothing. Then, out of the blue, I got a text from my mom. It was short, cold, and almost casual. "Come if you want. We already ordered food." Reading it, a mix of feelings hit me. Part of me felt hurt and ignored, like all those years of being overlooked hadn't mattered. Another part of me felt a small flicker of hope. Maybe this time things would be different. Maybe they actually wanted me there. I thought about staying home, about ignoring the invitation like I had learned to do so many times before. But something made me pick up my keys. Maybe it was curiosity, maybe it was the hope that, finally, my parents would treat me like I belonged. Driving over, I replayed memories of past family gatherings in my head. I remembered the birthdays where I got the smallest slice of cake, the holidays where I sat quietly while everyone else laughed and celebrated, and the endless feeling of being invisible. But I also reminded myself that I had grown stronger. I wasn't that scared, timid girl anymore. I could go, observe, and still leave without giving them power over my feelings. When I arrived, I realized immediately that things hadn't really changed. The room was full, the food was gone, and everyone seemed comfortable without me. Still, I stayed. I told myself I would give it a chance, even if it was just to see the truth clearly for the first time in years. That night would show me exactly where I stood in their lives, and it wasn't what I wanted to believe. When I walked into the dining room, the first thing I noticed was that every seat was already taken except a small chair pushed into the corner. The smell of food lingered in the air, but the plates were empty. Everyone was talking and laughing, clearly comfortable, as if I hadn't just shown up. I felt a tight knot form in my stomach. No one came to greet me. No one even glanced my way. I forced a small smile and quietly took the corner seat, trying not to draw attention. Then Travis, of course, couldn't resist. He leaned back in his chair, grinning, and said loud enough for everyone to hear, "Oh look, F finally showed up." Too late, as usual. The room erupted in laughter. My parents joined in, smiling like it was all a harmless joke. I could feel my cheeks burn, but I didn't respond. I just sat there, silent, while the laughter swirled around me. It was exactly what I had expected, yet it still hurt. All those years of being overlooked, of being treated as if I didn't belong, came rushing back. I remembered every birthday, every holiday, every time I had waited patiently while Travis got the best of everything. In that moment, it hit me hard, nothing had changed. They still saw me as the quiet one in the corner, the one who could be joked about and ignored without consequence. That chair in the corner wasn't just a seat, it was a reminder of my place in their eyes. I realized then that their smiles and polite invitations were meaningless. I was still the afterthought, the one they only noticed when it was convenient. And this time, I knew I wasn't going to pretend it didn't matter. I was sitting there quietly, feeling small and invisible, when my mom came over. Without much eye contact, she handed me a small, folded envelope. I opened it just enough to see a crisp $1,000 bill inside. She whispered, almost like she was nervous I might protest, "Don't make a scene today. Use this to get yourself something nice." I stared at the money in my hand. My first thought wasn't excitement or gratitude. It was confusion and anger. This wasn't a gift. It wasn't love. It was hush money. They were trying to pay me off to keep me quiet, to make sure I didn't say or do anything that might disrupt their perfect anniversary celebration. I remembered every moment growing up when I was overlooked, ignored, or pushed aside. Every time Travis got the attention and resources I had to fight for, every holiday where I was made to feel like I didn't belong, every time I worked hard while my parents gave him everything effortlessly. That $1,000 felt like another reminder that they never truly valued me, they just wanted me out of the way. I folded the bill back into the envelope, my hands trembling slightly. I didn't want to take it, but I also knew that refusing it wouldn't change anything. Their intention was clear. They wanted me to pretend everything was fine, to smile, to sit quietly, and let them keep up appearances. In that moment, I realized I had a choice. I could take their money and let them continue treating me like an afterthought, or I could leave and finally show them that I wasn't someone they could control with money or guilt. For the first time in years, I understood that my presence or absence had nothing to do with them, it had everything to do with me. Later that night, I was sitting quietly in the living room, trying not to draw attention, when I overheard Travis talking to some of our relatives. He was bragging loudly and proudly about how Mom and Dad had given him a $50,000 check to finally start his new business. He laughed and said how lucky he was to have parents who supported him in every way. I felt my chest tighten. I held the envelope with the $1,000 in my hand and stared at it. The contrast hit me like a punch. Travis got 50 times what I received, and for what? For doing nothing more than being their favorite. I wasn't even supposed to be there in the first place, just a silent shadow in the corner, quietly taking whatever crumbs were left. It wasn't just the money. It was everything it represented. The message was clear: Travis mattered more. His dreams were important, his successes celebrated, and his mistakes forgiven. Me? I was just a background character, someone they could push aside, ignore, or quietly pay off if needed. I felt a mix of anger, hurt, and disbelief. All those years of trying to fit in, of working hard, of hoping for acknowledgement, they meant nothing to them. Their love, their attention, their support, it all came with strings attached, and I had been nothing more than someone they could manipulate without consequences. Sitting there, listening to Travis laugh and boast, I finally understood the full truth. My parents' favoritism had been consistent my entire life, and it wasn't going to change. I realized then that I didn't need to fight for their approval anymore. Their treatment of me wasn't a reflection of my worth, it was a reflection of who they were. And finally, I decided I wouldn't let them control my life any longer. I didn't stay long after hearing Travis brag and seeing how my parents treated me. I quietly stood up, folded the envelope with the $1,000, and walked out without saying a word. No one called after me, no one seemed to notice. It was like I didn't exist. The drive home was silent except for the hum of the tires on the road. I couldn't hold back the tears. I wasn't crying because I was shocked or surprised anymore. I was crying because I finally saw the truth clearly: my parents didn't see me as their daughter. I had spent my whole life hoping for love and attention from them, trying to earn a place I would never truly have. All the birthdays I felt invisible, all the holidays I waited for recognition, all the times I worked and sacrificed while Travis got everything handed to him, it all made sense now. I realized I had been treated not as family, but as a liability. Someone who needed to be managed, kept quiet, or given just enough to stay out of the way. The sadness was heavy, but so was clarity. For the first time, I wasn't confused or questioning myself. I understood my parents, their priorities, and the role they had always forced me into. And with that understanding came a strange kind of freedom. I wiped my tears and took a deep breath. I didn't have to prove myself to them anymore. I didn't have to hope for their love or approval. I could leave it all behind and focus on the life I wanted, on people who would see me for who I was. That night, I decided I wouldn't let them define my worth anymore. I was done being a liability. After that night, I realized that getting angry or confronting my parents wouldn't change anything. They weren't going to see me as their daughter, no matter what I said or did. So I decided to do something they would never expect. I chose to walk away completely. I stopped answering their calls. I stopped visiting for holidays or birthdays. I refused to help them with anything, no matter how much they needed it. For years, I had been the dependable daughter, the one who showed up, the one who sacrificed, the one who quietly fixed problems. And for what? To be treated like I didn't matter. This time, I wasn't going to play that role. I wasn't going to make their lives easier while they ignored my feelings and needs. Walking away was my way of taking back control of my life. It wasn't about revenge in the dramatic sense. It was about showing them that I couldn't be used, overlooked, or bought with money anymore. For the first time, I felt a sense of peace. I didn't have to hope for approval or recognition from people who would never give it freely. I didn't have to justify my choices or explain my worth. By stepping back, I was finally putting myself first. It was hard at first. I missed the idea of family, the moments I wished could have been different. But the more I stayed away, the clearer it became. They had spent years showing me exactly where I belonged. And it wasn't with them. Walking away was my quiet revenge, not to hurt them, but to finally live my life on my own terms, without depending on people who never valued me. Months went by, and life continued on my terms. I focused on my work, my friends, and building a life where I was valued. I didn't hear much from my family, and honestly, I didn't mind. I had finally stopped carrying the weight of their expectations. Then one day, I got a call from Travis. He sounded panicked and desperate. "Evelyn, you have to come," he said. "Dad is sick, and I just can't handle everything on my own. Please, I need your help." I listened quietly. For years, I had been the one they relied on for everything: school, chores, family problems, but when I needed them or expected care, they weren't there. Now, suddenly, they wanted me back, like nothing had changed. I took a deep breath and politely refused. I explained that I had my own responsibilities and that I couldn't drop everything for them. I didn't yell. I didn't shame them. I just said no. The silence that followed was more powerful than anything I could have said. My absence hit harder than my presence ever had. Without me there to fix problems, organize care, or quietly pick up the pieces, the imbalance in our family became obvious. Travis struggled. My parents realized how much they had depended on me without ever truly appreciating me. For the first time, I wasn't the one feeling powerless. I was free. I didn't have to sacrifice my life for a family that had spent decades ignoring me. The quiet refusal, the simple act of stepping back, was my way of showing them that their neglect had consequences. And in that silence, I finally felt a sense of control and justice that no argument or confrontation could have given me. A few weeks later, my phone rang. It was my mom, Linda. Her voice was shaky, and I could hear her crying even before she spoke. She admitted that she knew they had treated me unfairly for years. She said she regretted the way things had been and tried to explain the $1,000 she had given me at the anniversary, claiming it was her way of showing she cared. I listened quietly. I had waited my whole life for a moment like this, but it wasn't exactly what I imagined. I could hear the guilt in her voice, but I also knew that a single act of money or a few words couldn't erase decades of neglect. Finally, I spoke calmly, without raising my voice or letting anger take over. "Mom," I said, "you don't fix a lifetime of neglect with a single bill. All the birthdays, all the holidays, all the times I needed you and wasn't seen, you can't undo that with money. You can't erase those years by pretending everything is okay now." She sniffled, her voice breaking even more. She tried to argue, to explain, but I stayed firm. For the first time, I wasn't shrinking or bending to make her feel better. I was speaking my truth. It felt strange, almost freeing, to say what I had held inside for so long. I didn't yell. I didn't accuse. I just told her the truth as clearly as I could. And even though it didn't change the past, it changed something inside me. I realized that speaking my truth didn't mean I needed her approval or forgiveness. It meant I was finally acknowledging my own worth and refusing to let their mistakes define me anymore. For the first time, I felt fully seen, not by them, but by myself. I never went back to the same family dynamic that had hurt me for so long. Instead, I focused on building my own life, one where I set boundaries, protected my peace, and surrounded myself with people who truly valued me. I learned that I didn't need their approval to feel complete or respected. My revenge wasn't about confrontation or causing drama. It wasn't about making them feel guilty. It was simple: I walked away. I stopped being the dependable daughter they relied on without care. I stopped giving them the power to make me feel small. My absence alone showed them what it meant to take me for granted, and it was enough. I used the lessons from those years to grow stronger. I pursued my career, built meaningful relationships, and created a life where I could thrive without needing anyone's permission. I finally realized that my worth wasn't tied to their recognition, and I didn't have to wait for anyone to see me. I was enough on my own. And the $1,000 my mom had given me? I kept it, not because it was a gift, but because it marked the exact moment I chose myself over them. It reminded me that I had the power to walk away, to stop being their afterthought, and to start living for me. Looking back now, I feel proud. I didn't need revenge in the usual sense because my life itself became my statement. By choosing myself, I proved that no family, no matter how close, could define my value. That simple act of leaving, of refusing to be treated as less, became the strongest form of justice I could ever have. And finally, I felt free.